Our next presentation is from Mike Starr, who will be presenting ChatGPT and network engineering. Mike is the founder and CEO of Tract and a member of the NANOG program committee. He's joining us today from Washington, D.C., and we are happy to welcome Mike back to the stage. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, man. All right. Before we get started, by show of hands, how many of you have heard about ChatGPT? All right, that's why you're here. Keep your hands up if you've used ChatGPT. Very nice. And those of you that have used any of OpenAI's like GPT-3 or prior, significantly less of you. Okay, cool. Thanks for indulging me. Let's get rolling. Like Steve said, my name is Mike Starr. I'm the founder and CEO of Tract, an early stage cybersecurity company that right now has nothing to do with the daily activities of network operators or the internet. That said, in my prior work lives, I was neck deep in network things, data center design, network architecture, blah, blah, blah. And last year I was appointed to the program committee, a goal of mine since my first NANOG 63 in 2015. The only reason there's context there is because as the program committee was solidifying talks for this NANOG, a question by our vice chair, Liz Colley, was posed about OpenAI's impact to the network community, the potential for its impact, if anyone had time or interest in generating some kind of talk that maybe the community might be interested in. And so I'd been working with GPT-3 for some time, probably last year or so, just doing some stuff with Tract, which is the large language model that ChatGPT is powered by, well, GPT-3, 3.5. But it launched around November, ChatGPT did, and I've been messing around with that as well. And thought, well, why not ask ChatGPT what it believes its impact could be to internet operators? So that's what we did. But before getting too far ahead of ourselves, I know most of you have seen this interface, but I just wanted to take a minute here to level set for a couple of reasons. First, just to make it obvious that anyone can use this tool, right? Regardless, what does that mean? I don't know what the hell that was. Regardless of your technical expertise, if you know anything about machine learning or artificial intelligence, it's a chatbot, right? We've all been to websites that have these marketing chatbots. They prompt you, you ask it a question, maybe you get an answer. That's how this thing works. So as long as you have an email address, that's the barrier to entry. Log into this thing, start asking it things. It's free for now. Get some use case in it. And so second, I wanted to really help conceptualize how my interaction with ChatGPT netted this talk. Talk about prompt optimization towards the end. But ultimately the goal was for those that want to keep digging after this talk, you have some reference to begin your own AI ML journey, if you so care. So picking up where we left off, can you see this thing? Yeah, kind of, okay. Picking up where we left off, I prompted ChatGPT for an outline of a 30-minute talk that you all might be interested in, which it provided. This is the thing that it said, and so this isn't really that helpful because I'm lazy. I wanted to know, well, can you generate some slides for me? It's a text-based AI model, so probably not, but I asked it anyways. And it told me, I can't generate slides, but I can generate the content for those slides. So it gave me a title, gave me all the bullet points, and then I'm, again, lazy, so I didn't want to add any of the context to these bullet points, and so I asked it, can you generate all of the data for each of the data points you provided for these five slides? And it did. So here we go. Let's see what he had to say. So first, ChatGPT would like you to know what it is and how it works. We're not going to go into super detail here. But essentially, ChatGPT is a large language model developed by OpenAI. It's trained using massive amounts of text-based data and can generate human-like text in response. Of note, it's only aware of events through 2021. It's trained up to 2021 and no further. There's a lot more that goes into this, but you get the gist. We're going to ask some questions and hopefully get sensible answers. But we'll see. Second, ChatGPT would like to impress upon all of you that automation in network engineering is becoming increasingly more important because it can reduce human error, increase efficiencies, and improve consistency. And it believes that it can help you do this. And it believes it can help you do this in 3 ways: configuration generation, troubleshooting, and documentation. So why? Network engineers can focus on critical tasks. It believes security is critical. It believes capacity planning is critical. It doesn't want you to spend wasting your time on repetitive manual tasks. Sounds reasonable. So we'll explore each of these three briefly with some configuration examples using Cisco and Juniper syntax, because ChatGPT believes that those are the most common vendors. And just a note here, we'll go through some examples. As we do so, anything denoted with an asterisk was mutated by me because the text responses are massive and illegible. Before we go on, that said, at the very end, the entire conversation I had toiling with ChatGPT is on GitHub. You can download it. The link's on the very end. If you want to read through it while you're on a Zoom call that you're not paying attention to, you can do that. But for our first use case, I gave ChatGPT a few prompts. The first one is to generate a complete Cisco router configuration with the intention of starting a new internet exchange. Then I asked it for the same for Juniper router. And then finally, I asked it to Gingify or create a Jinja template for each of those vendors so that we could do this in a repetitive way, use Python or something to generate that stuff. And so the point, I just want to make a note here that the point isn't to review the configuration line by line for accuracy. Really, it's just to demonstrate that ChatGPT is aware of specific configurations and can generate decent examples, which operators can use to reference either in template generation or as singular configuration files. So nothing crazy here. We got some OSPF, BGP. For those of you that are not familiar with Jinja syntax, the little curly braces denote some conditional logic, or the double curly braces are variables. And so, yeah, this is pretty standard, right? Nothing groundbreaking here. We got some interface configs. You can see it understands, interestingly, that maybe not interestingly, but interestingly, that loopbacks tend to be /32s. It says that we should probably set up some peering sessions. It also has an update source of loopback interfaces, also pretty standard, right? This is something that we tend to do. And interestingly, that it also knows that typically we like to have maybe neighbors on a different, or neighbors of different ASs tend to have different subnets. Obviously, these are human inferences that's not telling me these things. What do we have? Oh, we've got prefix lists, route maps, the application of those things. Right, this is all fairly standard. And then we have this in Juniper, right? Same thing, interfaces, OSPF, BGP. All pretty standard stuff. No one's amazed here, right? Conclusion is that ChatGPT is aware of vendor-specific syntax, and it can generate configurations, but you should carefully inspect them. And this is a fairly generic prompt, like we didn't give it anything specific. But if you wanted to get more specific configuration examples that are relevant to you and your environment, you could say something like generate a BGP config for Cisco IOS router with an AS of 25885, announcing the subnet of 74.123.200.0.24, right? And it'll put that out. What we have here isn't a bad example for building like a quick lab. I know personally the most annoying thing that I had to do as I was learning how to do networking things was build a lab. It was like so annoying to build, five routers, whatever. ChatGPT can do that. So pretty cool that it maintained the /24 network consistency as well across the interface, neighbor, route map configurations. So minor context or state maintenance. This second use case took me a little longer to reason about. Essentially an appropriate way to demonstrate ChatGPT's capabilities, if it had any at all. What was an interesting problem that was complex enough, but not too complex that everyone could easily grasp immediately what was going on. Blah, 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 right? Is it solvable? Whatever. I'll spare you the toil, but essentially at some point I came to the epiphany that Reddit exists, specifically a subreddit called R Networking, dedicated to folks asking for real help with real problems that they actually have right now. So that's where we're going next. And instead of log files, we'll be using Reddit posts. So first one is a issue with OSPF. And OP decided to just resolve their issues by switching to ERGRP, but that's not good enough. They were still asking for help. So I found this gem after a few minutes, couldn't figure out how to filter the default route announcement into area 7. Seems easy enough to solve as experienced network operators. Let's see what ChatGPT thinks could be the problem. So we give it this prompt, a little bit of context. There's a Reddit post. Can you help me? And its assertion was that the presence of this line of configuration supersedes the presence of a prefix filter. Maybe, maybe not. But I wanted to see if ChatGPT could generate a correct configuration to achieve OP's goal. So this is the prompt we gave it. How would I do it? No? There we go. And at first glance, this seems fine. But as I'm going through the OSPF config, I paused. And now I'd never seen Area 7, like I've never seen this option of default information never in any vendor doc. I've never seen it on any of my routers. So my immediate reaction was like, nice try, computer. You're not taking my job. But then I realized it had been a minute since I logged into a Cisco router, so I was like, well, maybe I should jump over to Google and verify this is actually fake news. And I'm happy to report that the never keyword still is not valid configuration in a Cisco router. So the conclusion here isn't that ChatGPT is trash, right? It's that given some syntax, like it could probably potentially help with some simple routing, maybe even complex routing troubleshooting problems, but just not specifically this problem without additional prompts. Right? If we gave it some more prompts, some more interesting, spent some more time with giving it prompts and asking it better questions, maybe it would have gotten there, but not this time. And I wanted to try another question and thought, well, maybe BGP might be easier. And I don't know why I thought that, but BGP seems like it's kind of ubiquitous. Maybe there's more questions about it. There's got to be something on our networking that had a BGP question. And so I jumped back over to Reddit, scrolled for a little while, and before I found a BGP question, I found something much, much better. Everyone's favorite protocol, spanning tree. And so I was excited. I love spanning tree, or I love talking about spanning tree. I love just the lack of knowledge around it in general, or general understanding. And so I figured, well, something that has functional knowledge of or formal competence around just massive amounts of text data probably understands spanning tree a little bit better than the average human, but figured let's see what it has to say about it. But obviously this is a mess. I highlighted some of the things that are important here. But essentially there are three devices, one firewall, two switches. Two switches are plugged into the firewall and data is flowing fine. But when the two switches are connected together, magically data stops flowing. Shock of shocks. So just like last time, we gave ChatGPT some context, copy-pasted OP's question to the prompt. And for anyone that was able to read the OP's post before I changed slides, it was probably immediately obvious that there's not enough information to really come up with like, yeah, this is definitely the problem. But ChatGPT did come up with all of the same things that I thought immediately that could potentially be the issues, right? VLAN misconfiguration on trunks. It's running two different spanning tree protocols and potentially one of the ports in blocking mode. So yeah, the conclusion is that ChatGPT does indeed understand spanning tree much better than most of the network engineers I've interviewed over the last 10 years. But let's see if it can identify whether or not can generate whether or not loops are present, the configuration to understand whether or not there are loops present or blocking ports on any of these devices. Keep in mind there are two vendors, which ChatGPT got. So it recognized that there were two vendors. So the firewall was Fortinet, the switch was Fortinet, and the other switch was Juniper. And there's two different commands for each of those to identify whether or not there are BPDUs and whether or not the port was in blocking state. And so it got this one right. Not too bad. Conclusion here is that ChatGPT might result in the obsolescence of subreddits and Stack Overflow. However, Stack Overflow does have a solution, temporary solution for this, and it's that they just block ChatGPT responses, unsurprisingly. That was funny. So yeah, I think ChatGPT in general can help troubleshoot networking problems with correct prompts, right? Prompt optimization, I'm going to keep saying this over and over until the slides we exhaust the slides, but prompt optimization is really important in all AI tools. And ChatGPT is no different. And so I think ChatGPT can especially be helpful for junior engineers as they come in understanding protocols more deeply and potentially even more so as we transition to this cloud network engineering that Cam was talking about yesterday, the kind of a convergence of these two, what were typically different discrete groups of people now trying to converge these skill sets. And so I'd love to hear, by the way, I saw a lot of hands go up for like people that have touched ChatGPT since it came out. And so I'd love to hear if any of you have used it to solve some of your more difficult, like tier 3 or plus troubleshooting problems. I think the PC would be interested in if, like, as talks in the future, or just informally come up to me and tell me about this cool thing you saw ChatGPT do, or this nonsensical thing, which is even funnier. And so our final use case is about automating documentation. I was really skeptical about both of these assertions. ChatGPT is a text-based language model, as we said, and so the fact that it asserted it could generate Visio diagrams or just network diagrams in general, I was quite skeptical. But we asked it anyways. It said it could do it, so we're going to ask it. Generate 2 network diagrams, and it says it can't do it, so no dice. But I tried. Again, I was persistent. I reminded it that it said it could do it. Maybe we'll get something useful. And no. It lied. So the conclusion here is lies and deceit, right? So super disappointed that I still have to generate Visio diagrams. Sorry? I did not try anything specifically. So one of the things that I'll talk about at the very end of this is that I did do literally no prompt optimization. I could have kept going and suggested, are there any alternative methods? And so I did, but one, I tried ASCII art, and it can support limited ASCII art renderings. These other things, potentially, come up to me after this so I can remember what you said, wrote it down, because I certainly will not. But potentially that's useful. You got to go to the mic, please and thank you. Got questions, comments? Go to the mic. Oop, hold on 1 second.
The problem with Visio is it's closed. If tools like Graphiz that are free software and have lots of examples and have lots of tutorials, it can spit out lots of them.
Sure, and that's great. That's probably true. I didn't specify a Visio as a thing. I just said, can you give me some can you build network diagrams? And ChatGPT said no. Potentially with the specification of certain types of tools, it might be able to generate something. But again, just in this form of interacting with ChatGPT, it's fairly limited, right? It doesn't have any API calls or any of these kinds of things in this form, right? You can log into OpenAI and use its APIs. That's how it got fairly famous fairly quickly. Jumping back to the second component here is that ChatGPT asserted it could help with generating technical documentation. Who likes to do that? Not me. And so I wasn't sure how to even begin to create a well-formed prompt. And so I just asked ChatGPT, how the hell should I ask you to generate some documentation? Hello, there we go. And so it said, simply provide a detailed description of the network you want to document. And so that's not a great start, right? Essentially it said, document the network you want me to document. Useless. So I thought, well, what if I provided a complete configuration file and asked it to summarize it, document it, templatize it, whatever. So I scoured the internet for a few seconds to find something interesting. I got this configuration file off of Learning Network on Cisco's site. It is massive, and it has every protocol configured: BGP, OSPF, MPLS, PIM, blah, 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 blah. So I thought this was going to be interesting because it's a massive file, and I was curious to see how ChatGPT would handle it. And it did well. It did okay. Got to wait about halfway through. It picked up, these guys. I'm not going to read it to you. You can read. And then it failed, right? So it hit some mental block as it was summarizing. Typically, you can prompt ChatGPT to continue, right? Whatever your colloquial way of telling it to keep doing the thing. I'm still here. I'm still watching Netflix, and it didn't do anything. It couldn't. It picked up from the very beginning. It didn't pick up the other half of the configuration file, and so it missed these other protocols. conclusion here is that up until its limitation, ChatGPT was doing a pretty good job of describing the summarizations of what's configured, how it's configured, etc. But the configuration is too big, even with follow-ups. And so one potential optimization here would be copy 100 lines, paste 100 lines, tell me what it's doing, pick up, pick up, pick up. But I wanted to see if it could start templating this thing for us. Given this extremely busy router, I'm not trying to provision all of these protocols on my own every time I need new routers. And so I tried twice to prompt ChatGPT without repasting the configuration without success. And so I tried to prompt it with a full configuration, the Cisco configuration again. And I got this. For any of you that have ever worked with Cisco, that is not Cisco syntax. Looks more appropriate for a Juniper router. I didn't really spend much time figuring out whether or not it's valid, but that's not Cisco syntax. And so the conclusion here is interesting. And I think that the problem really is specificity. Prompt optimization, again, are key to extracting value out of ChatGPT, and again, any AI tool. But if you're curious as to what could have caused the template, I actually got this research note sent to me by a friend early in January. It's fairly fresh opinion research out of Cornell, but it talks about the lack of functional competence in large language models, and that in the difference between formal competence and functional competence. The Mastodon post is here. You'll get these slides, and the research is open and available for free. Another interesting prompt that I thought of that I didn't have time to put together, but something that could have been interesting is, like, given this configuration file, generate a BGP peer or generate an MPLS peer or whatever. I think, again, this comes down to being a really interesting way for junior engineers or just engineers that are trying to learn a new protocol and how it typically works together could be useful. Of course, ChatGPT isn't without its limitations. Notably, it can't generate Visio diagrams. The other one is known as artificial intelligence hallucination, in which responses to prompts are sometimes plausible sounding, but they're incorrect or nonsensical. And so we saw that potentially what that was in the previous example. The other limitation that we touched on a little bit is that ChatGPT has limited knowledge of events that have occurred after 2021 because it hasn't been trained after that. And then a few other things to keep in mind is domain specificity. It's trained on a bunch of stuff, but not specifically networking things. And so if you give it too technical or too complex of a prompt, it probably won't be able to answer you very well. And then the other one that I just want to mention is that everything you put into ChatGPT is stored. All the prompts, all its responses are stored. And so you shouldn't put anything sensitive in ChatGPT. That probably goes without saying, but maybe not at Facebook, because it was purported that Facebook has begged their employees to not put proprietary information, trade secrets into ChatGPT. So I'm just giving you the warning. Don't put your proprietary trade secrets into ChatGPT. Your company's not going to like that. So again, conclusion, prompts are the foundation of extracting value out of your AI tools. How well you can prompt your tool will define the value you get from the AI platforms you're working with. And again, to be fair, all of these prompts had zero optimization on my part. It was just copy paste mostly. And I'm not sure what is the cause of the responses being either like seemingly time or complexity bound. I'm assuming OpenAI has had difficulty maintaining stability on their platform with the massive amount of interest that ChatGPT has had, and so I'm sure that they're rate limiting the responses to complexity. They're burning a lot of cash right now. But again, you can prompt ChatGPT if it stops in the middle of a response, typically to continue, carry on, whatever, and most of the time it picks up where it left off. And in general, I think that ChatGPT and other large language models will have significant benefit to the internet community. It seems like everyone potentially agrees, at least for the ones that are messing with it or still curious. That said, it's my opinion that there's no need to lose sleep over whether or not we'll be replaced by AI network engineers anytime soon. So this is the link to GitHub. Again, if you want something to help chuckle at, whatever. And that's all for today. Not sure if there are any questions, but if there are, I'm happy to try and answer them. Otherwise, thanks for your time. I hope it was worthwhile.